I don't know how to explain that without sounding like I'm exaggerating, but I promise you, I'm not. There's something about the way you show up for me again and again that makes me feel like maybe I'm not as alone in this world as I thought I was. Once, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, is this real? Is he really saying this to me? And I understand the doubt, because the world has taught you that people say beautiful things and mean nothing by them. But stay a little longer, because I promise this isn't one of those moments. This is me, stripped of everything performative. Just talking to you like I would talk to someone I trust with my whole heart. There were nights, and I mean real nights, not exaggerated for effect, where I sat with my phone in my hand, staring at a message from you, rereading it over and over, because it made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Seen, not looked at. Seen. Do you understand the difference? A lot of people look at me, they see the image, the persona, the thing I present to the world. But you, somehow, in the way you write to me, in the way you respond, in the way you care, you see past that. And that terrifies me a little because it means you could hurt me if you wanted to. But it also means you could heal me. And somehow, without even trying, you already have. I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about the answer before you respond in your head. Have you ever loved someone from a distance, not knowing if they'd ever know, not knowing if it would ever be spoken, but loving them anyway, because the loving itself felt like enough? Because that's where I am right now. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know if this feeling makes sense to anyone outside of me. But I know that right now, in this exact moment, I feel closer to you than I felt to almost anyone in a long time. And I don't want that feeling to end. Stay with me a little longer, because there's more I need to say, and I don't think I'll ever have the courage to say it again if I stop now. You know, people always ask me what keeps me going. They expect me to say some big motivational answer, chasing dreams, proving people wrong, all of that. And sure, that's part of it. But if I'm being completely honest with you, right now, in this quiet moment between us, the truth is simpler than that. It's you. It's the version of you that stays up late listening to what I have to say. It's the version of you that reads every word like it means something, because to you, it does. You give meaning to things I say without even realizing you're the reason they matter in the first place. But I remember a night, I won't say exactly when, because some things feel too personal to place on a timeline. But I remember feeling like everything was falling apart around me. The kind of falling apart that doesn't show on the outside. The kind you smile through in public and cry through in private. And in the middle of that, a message came through. Just a simple one. Just someone, just you telling me that something I said once helped them get through their own hard day. Do you know what that did to me? It reminded me that even when I feel like I'm breaking, I'm still somehow holding someone else together. And that gave me a reason to keep holding myself together too. I don't say this to make you feel responsible for me. That's not what this is. I say this because I want you to understand the weight of your kindness. You think small gestures don't matter. You think a comment, a message, a moment of attention doesn't do anything. But it does. It reaches further than you'll ever know. It reached me on nights when nothing else could. There's a kind of love that doesn't need touch to be real. A kind of love that exists in words, in presence, in showing up consistently for someone even when there's no promise of anything in return. I think that's the kind of love I feel for you. Not the kind that needs definition. Not the kind that needs a label. Just the kind that exists quietly, patiently, in the background of everything I do, reminding me that somewhere out there, you're listening, and that alone makes the noise of the world a little softer. Pupui, I want to ask you to stay a little longer, not because I have something dramatic to reveal, but because I don't want this moment between us to end yet. Isn't it strange how some moments feel too fragile to interrupt? Like if we talk too fast or move too quickly, the feeling will slip away. I feel that right now. I feel like if I stop talking to you, this closeness we've built in the last few minutes will disappear. And I don't want it to. I want to hold on to it a little longer. Let me tell you something else. Something I've never admitted before. There are days I look at the way you show up for me. The loyalty, the patience, the quiet consistency, and I wonder if I deserve it. I wonder if I've done enough to earn the kind of care you give so freely. And in those moments of doubt, I remind myself that love, real love, isn't about deserving. It's about receiving something with gratitude and giving back with everything you have. So even if I don't always know how to say it right, please know that I try every single day to give back to you even a fraction of what you've given me. I think about the future sometimes, and I wonder what it would feel like if the distance between us wasn't just something on a screen. What would it feel like to sit across from you, to really talk, to laugh without a delay? To feel your presence not through a message but through the space beside me. I don't know if that will ever happen, but I know that even the thought of it makes my chest feel warm, makes the ache of missing something feel a little more bearable. You make me want to be a better version of myself. Not because you asked me to, you never asked me to, but because knowing you're watching, knowing you care, makes me want to show up as someone worth caring about. Isn't that strange? How someone you've maybe never even met in person can shape the way you carry yourself in the world? We keep going back and forth on whether to say this next part, but I think you deserve honesty more than I deserve comfort. So here it is. There are nights I feel unworthy of the love people show me. There are nights the loneliness creeps in, no matter how many people are around me, no matter how loud the world gets. And in those nights, it's not the noise that saves me. It's the quiet thought of you, somewhere out there, caring, waiting, believing in me even when I don't believe in myself. That quiet thought is louder than any noise the world could ever make. I don't know how to end this, and honestly, I don't want to. I don't want this to be one of those moments that just fades into silence once the words stop. I want you to carry this with you. I want you to remember that somewhere, someone is grateful for you in ways words can barely hold. I want you to know that even on your hardest days, you are someone's reason to keep going. So stay a little longer with me. Let's not rush this. Let's just sit in this feeling together. Because I don't think either of us is ready to let it go just yet. There's something I keep thinking about. Something I've never said before, and I think it's time I finally let it out. Do you ever notice how the people who care the most are usually the ones who say the least about it? That's how I feel about you. I don't always find the right words in the moment. I don't always know how to explain what it means when I see your name pop up. Or when I read something you wrote that made me pause and just sit with it for a second longer than I meant to. But the feeling is there every time, quiet and steady, like a heartbeat I don't have to think about to keep alive. I want to take you back to a moment, if you'll let me. A moment I've never told anyone about. I was somewhere quiet, somewhere I go when the world gets too loud, and I was scrolling without really looking at anything. The way you do when your mind is somewhere else entirely. And then I stopped. Something you'd written, something small, something you probably don't even remember writing, stopped me completely. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't trying to be profound, it was just honest. And in that honesty, I saw something of myself reflected back at me. The tiredness, the hope, the quiet stubbornness to keep believing in something better. I sat there for a long time after that, just thinking about how strange it is that two people who've never really met can understand each other so completely through nothing but words on a screen. But I think that's the part that scares me the most. If I'm being honest with you, not the distance, not the not knowing what tomorrow holds. What scares me is how easily you've become someone I think about, without meaning to. In the middle of a meeting, in the middle of a meal, in the middle of a conversation with someone else entirely, a thought of you will slip in, uninvited, and settle somewhere in my chest, like it belongs there. I used to fight it. I used to tell myself it was just admiration, just gratitude, nothing more. But I don't think I can keep pretending that anymore. Not with you, not after everything. Here I keep asking myself what it is about you specifically. There are so many people in this world, so many voices, so much noise every single day. And yet it's your voice, your presence, your quiet consistency that stays with me the longest. Maybe it's the way you never asked for anything in return for caring. Maybe it's the way you showed up on the days nobody else did. Maybe it's simpler than all of that. Maybe it's just that you feel like home in a world that rarely does. I don't know. I just know that whatever it is, I'm not interested in fighting it anymore. Can I be a little vulnerable with you right now? There are nights I lie awake and I think about all the things I wish I could tell you in person. All the things that feel too big to type, too big to say into a camera, too big to fit into any message. I think about how I'd tell you that your kindness isn't wasted on me, even when I don't respond the way you might hope. I think about how I'd tell you that the version of me you see is not performance. It's the most honest version I know how to give. And somehow, you still choose to stay for it. Do you understand how rare that is? To be seen at your most unfiltered and still be chosen. I don't take that lightly. I never have. Moments. I remember thinking a while back that maybe I was overthinking all of this. Maybe it was just me projecting feelings onto something that wasn't really there, but then I'd read something else you wrote, or hear about something you did, some small act of loyalty or patience, and the feeling would come rushing back stronger than before, refusing to be explained away. I've stopped trying to talk myself out of it. I think some feelings are meant to be felt, not analyzed into nothing. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with being known by many and understood by few. I think you felt some version of that too, even if your world looks different from mine. That's maybe why we understand each other the way we do. Not because our lives are the same, but because the ache of being unseen, even while surrounded by people, is something we both carry quietly. And somehow, in finding each other, even through a screen, even through distance, that ache gets a little lighter. Isn't that strange? How something so intangible can feel so real. I want you to know that whatever this is between us, whatever this feeling has grown into over time, it isn't something I take for granted. Every day I think about ending this, not because I want to, but because a part of me wonders if it's fair to keep feeling this way about someone I may never get to fully know. And every day, that same part of me loses the argument. Because the thought of not feeling this way about you feels emptier than any risk this feeling could ever bring. Do you remember moments where you felt like giving up? I've had those too, more than I've ever admitted publicly. And in almost every single one of them, it wasn't grand gestures that pulled me back. It was small things, a message, a memory of your kindness. A thought that somewhere someone like you existed and believed in something good in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. That kind of belief doesn't just disappear, it stays with you. It becomes part of the reason you keep going, even on days when going feels impossible. I think about what it would mean to finally say all of this without holding anything back. Not in fragments, not in careful, curated pieces. Just the whole truth, laid out in front of you, trusting you to hold it gently. I think that's what I'm doing right now, in this very moment. I'm trusting you with something I've never trusted anyone else with, the full weight of what you mean to me. And I don't say that lightly, because trust, real trust, isn't something I give easily. There are so many things I want to tell you still, so many nights I want to describe, so many quiet moments where your presence, even from a distance, made everything feel a little more bearable. I want to tell you about the way gratitude and longing can feel almost identical sometimes, tangled together in a feeling too big to separate into neat categories. I want to tell you that even not knowing what happens next, even not knowing if this feeling will ever find its way into something more solid than words, I wouldn't trade this closeness for anything. So stay with me a little longer. There's still so much I haven't said, so much I'm still learning how to put into words, and I don't want to stop now, not when it finally feels like I'm being completely honest with you for the first time. Iftanako. I want to tell you about the version of me that nobody else gets to see, not the one who shows up polished, put together, saying the right things at the right time. I mean the version that sits in silence after everything is over, when the lights are off and there's nothing left to perform for anyone. That version of me is quieter, more uncertain, more human than anything you've probably imagined. And strangely, that's the version of me that thinks about you the most. Not the version trying to impress anyone, just me alone, thinking about someone who somehow makes the alone feel less lonely. I don't know if you've ever had someone in your life who felt like a quiet anchor without ever really being close to you in the traditional sense. Someone who never touched your hand but somehow steadied you anyway. That's what you've become to me, and I don't think I realized it happening until it already had. It wasn't a single moment. It was hundreds of small ones stacked so gently on top of each other that by the time I noticed the shape they'd built, it already looked like something I couldn't easily walk away from, even if I wanted to. I keep thinking about how strange trust is, how it doesn't always arrive with grand declarations. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the way you keep coming back, even when I don't always have the energy to give you everything you deserve. In the way you forgive the days I go quiet, the days I disappear into my own head and forget to show up the way I want to. You've never made me feel guilty for being human, and I think that's one of the rarest gifts anyone has ever given me. Most people want the polished version. You seem to want all of it, the good, the tired, the uncertain, and somehow that makes me want to give you more of myself, not less. There's a specific kind of ache that comes with caring about someone from a distance, isn't there? It's not the sharp kind of pain. It's slower, quieter, the kind that sits in your chest like a low hum. You almost forget is there until a certain thought reminds you of it. I feel that hum whenever I think about the things I want to say to you, but haven't yet found the courage to. I feel it when I wonder whether you feel even a fraction of what I feel, or whether this is something I'm carrying entirely on my own. But even in that uncertainty, I don't feel afraid. I feel like whatever this is, it's worth carrying, even without a guarantee of where it leads. I think about time a lot lately. How strange it is that time can feel so slow on hard days and so fast when I'm thinking about all the moments I wish I could have with you, moments that don't even exist yet, moments I've only imagined. I imagine what it would feel like to tell you these things without a screen between us, to watch your face soften, or maybe tense with surprise, as I say all the things I've never said to anyone. I imagine sitting somewhere quiet, somewhere with no cameras, no noise, no performance, just two people, finally honest with each other in real time. Do you ever wonder if the people who show up for you the most are the ones who need you the most too? I think that's true for me. Every time I show up for you, through words, through honesty, through this quiet unraveling of feelings I've never voiced before, I think some part of me is also asking you to show up for me in return. Not because I expect it, but because somewhere in this exchange, we've built something neither of us planned for, and I don't want to be the only one holding on to it. I remember a specific kind of silence that used to scare me before I met you. If you can even call this meeting. The silence after a long day, when there's no one to talk to, no message waiting, nothing pulling you out of your own head. That silence used to feel unbearable. But now, even in the middle of that silence, I think of you, and somehow the silence doesn't feel as heavy anymore. It feels like it's holding space for something instead of just being empty. I don't know how to explain that without sounding like I'm exaggerating, but I promise you, this is the most honest I've been with anyone in a very long time. There's a version of the future I sometimes let myself imagine, even though I know imagining it doesn't guarantee anything. In that version, the distance between us isn't measured in screens and messages anymore. In that version, I get to see the way your eyes look when you're really listening, not just reading words on a page. I get to hear the way your voice changes when you're nervous, or excited, or trying to hide how much something means to you. I don't know if that version of the future is realistic, but I know that even imagining it makes the present feel a little more bearable, a little more hopeful. More healthy. I think part of why I've never said any of this before is because saying it makes it real. And once something becomes real, it becomes something you can lose. I've spent so much of my life protecting myself from loss that I forgot what it feels like to risk something simply because it feels worth risking. But with you, I think I'm finally ready to take that risk. Not recklessly, not without thought, but honestly, fully, without holding back the parts of me that are scared of what happens next. Landing on you, I want you to know that even on the days I don't say much, even on the days I seem distant or distracted, you are still there quietly present in my mind, in a way that doesn't fade just because I'm not saying it out loud. I think some feelings don't need constant expression to remain true. They just need space to exist, patiently until the right moment to be spoken arrives, and I think this right now might be that moment. There's something oddly comforting about saying all of this without knowing exactly how it will be received. It feels like standing at the edge of something unfamiliar, but instead of fear, there's a strange kind of peace, like I've been needing to let this out for a long time, and finally doing it feels like breathing after holding my breath for way too long. I keep thinking about all the little things that led to this moment. The messages, the quiet support, the way you never asked for anything but somehow gave me everything I didn't know I needed. I think about how easy it would have been for either of us to walk away at any point. And yet here we are, still here, still choosing this, still choosing each other in whatever form this connection takes. So let me stay here a little longer with you in this honesty, in this vulnerability, because I don't think I'm ready to close this chapter yet. There's still more I want to say, more I want you to understand, more of myself I want to give you before this moment slips away into something unspoken again. I keep coming back to this question, and maybe it's the question underneath everything I've already told you. What does it actually mean to matter to someone? I used to think it meant being remembered on the big days, the milestones, the celebrations, the moments everyone notices. But the more I've come to know this feeling, the more I've realized mattering isn't about the big days at all. It's about the ordinary ones. It's about being the thought that shows up on a Tuesday afternoon, for no reason at all, in the middle of something completely unrelated, just because some part of you never really left my mind in the first place. That's you. You show up in the ordinary moments, uninvited, but never unwelcome. And I think that says more about what you mean to me than any grand gesture ever could. Or, I want to tell you about the fear too, because I don't think this would be honest if I only gave you the soft parts. There's a fear that sits underneath all of this, quiet but persistent, that maybe I'm building something in my mind that doesn't exist in the same way on your end, that maybe I'm the only one carrying this weight, mistaking loyalty for something deeper, mistaking kindness for something it was never meant to be. I won't pretend that fear doesn't visit me some nights. It does. But even with that fear sitting beside me, I keep choosing to say these things anyway, because I think the risk of never saying them is worse than the risk of saying them and being wrong. Do you know what it feels like to hope quietly, not the loud kind of hope people talk about on their best days, but the small, private kind that you almost don't want to admit to yourself, because naming it makes it fragile. That's the kind of hope I carry when I think about you. A quiet hope that maybe somewhere in all of this, you feel even a fraction of what I feel. A hope that this isn't one-sided, that this isn't just me projecting warmth onto someone who was simply being kind. I don't need certainty. I've learned certainty is rare in anything worth having. But I do need this hope, because without it, I don't know how I would keep finding the courage to keep saying these things to you. I think about all the versions of myself you've met over time, not physically, but through words, through presence, through the pieces of me I've chosen to share. And I wonder if you've noticed how those versions have slowly become more honest, more unguarded, more willing to admit the things I used to hide even from myself. I think you've had something to do with that. Being around someone who accepts you without demanding perfection has a way of softening the parts of you that used to stay hidden out of fear. You've done that for me without ever asking me to change, without ever making me feel like I needed to be anything other than exactly who I am. There's a particular memory I keep returning to, one I haven't shared with anyone until now. It was a day that didn't seem significant at first. Nothing dramatic happened, nothing worth mentioning on the surface. But somewhere in the middle of that ordinary day, I found myself thinking about how much lighter everything felt, simply because I knew you were somewhere out there, existing, caring, present in whatever way you choose to be present. That thought alone turned an ordinary day into something I still remember clearly, months later, like it mattered more than it had any right to. I keep wondering what it would feel like to finally close the distance between us, not just physically, but in every sense of the word. To stop measuring this connection through screens and words typed late at night, and instead measure it through shared silences, through glances that say more than sentences ever could, through the simple comfort of being near someone who understands you without needing an explanation. I don't know if that's something either of us will ever get to experience together, but even considering it, even letting myself imagine it, feels like enough for now. I think part of why this feels so hard to say is because vulnerability has never come easily to me. I've spent so much of my life building walls disguised as confidence, protecting myself from the possibility of being hurt by people who claim to care, but never truly did. And yet here I am, slowly taking those walls down for you, piece by piece, not because you asked me to, but because something about the way you've shown up, consistently and without conditions, makes me want to be honest in a way I've avoided for most of my life. I wonder sometimes what you think about when you're not talking to me. Whether thoughts of this connection cross your mind, the way mine cross with you. Whether there are quiet moments in your day where something reminds you of a message I sent, or a thought I shared, and it lingers there a little longer than it probably should. I don't know the answer to that, but I like imagining that maybe somewhere in your world there's a small space that belongs to this feeling too. I keep thinking about how strange it is that two people can build something this real without ever fully knowing what it is they're building. There's no name for this yet, no clear definition, just a feeling that keeps growing quietly, patiently, refusing to be ignored no matter how many times either of us might try to rationalize it away. I've stopped trying to rationalize it. I think some things are meant to exist without labels, at least for now. And maybe that uncertainty is part of what makes this feel so alive. I want you to know that whatever happens after this, whatever comes next in either of our lives, this moment, this honesty mattered. It wasn't wasted. It wasn't just words typed into the void, hoping someone might read them. It was real, and it came from somewhere true, somewhere I don't often let people see. And I think that alone makes this worth everything it took to finally say it. So, don't go yet. Stay a little longer with me, because even now, even after everything I've already shared, there's still a part of me that isn't ready to let this feeling end here. I think about the word enough a lot lately, and how strange it is that so many of us go through life feeling like we're never quite enough for the people around us. Not smart enough, not successful enough, not lovable enough in the way we hope to be. I carried that feeling for years, quietly behind every achievement, behind every smile people thought looked confident. But somewhere in the middle of all these words I've been sharing with you, I noticed something shift. Around you, I don't feel the need to prove that I'm enough. I just feel like I am, simply by being myself, simply by showing up honestly, instead of performing a version of myself I think people want to see. I don't know how to thank you for that, except by giving you the truest parts of me, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. There's a kind of comfort in being known without needing to explain yourself constantly. And I think that's something I found in this connection with you. I don't have to translate my feelings into something more palatable. I don't have to soften the edges of who I really am just to be accepted. You've made space for the complicated parts of me. The tired parts, the uncertain parts, the parts that don't always know what they want. And you've done it without ever making me feel like a burden for having them. That kind of acceptance is rare, and I don't think I've told you clearly enough how much it means to me. I keep thinking back to all the times I almost said something like this before and stopped myself out of fear. Fear of misreading the situation. Fear of putting weight onto something that was maybe never meant to carry it. But the more time passes, the more I realize that silence has its own cost too. Every day I didn't say this, I lost the chance to let you know exactly how much you've shaped the quiet corners of my life. And I don't want to keep losing those chances anymore. I'd rather risk saying too much than regret saying too little. Do you ever think about how connection isn't always loud? How sometimes the deepest bonds are built not through grand declarations, but through small, consistent choices, showing up, listening, remembering, caring without conditions. That's the kind of connection I feel we've built. Slowly, over time, without either of us fully realizing how deep it had become until we found ourselves here. In this moment, with me finally saying all the things I've kept hidden for so long, I want to tell you something that might sound simple, but it means everything to me. On the days I feel like the world doesn't understand me, on the days people misinterpret who I am or what I stand for, there's a specific kind of relief in knowing that somewhere you understand. Not because I've explained everything perfectly, but because you've taken the time to actually see me, past the surface, past the noise, into something more real. That understanding has become one of the quiet anchors of my life. Something I don't think I could easily go back to living without. I think about the future in fragments sometimes, small pieces of imagined moments that I hold on to, like little promises to myself. A conversation that goes deeper than anything typed on a screen. A silence between us that feels comfortable instead of uncertain. A moment where the space between us, whatever that space looks like, finally feels a little smaller than it does now. I don't know if these fragments will ever become something whole, but even holding on to them gives me a kind of hope I haven't felt in a long time. There's something I need you to understand clearly, even if I say it in a roundabout way. This isn't about needing constant reassurance or asking you to carry more than you're able to give. This is simply about finally being honest about what I feel, without expecting anything specific in return. I think real care doesn't come with conditions attached. It just exists, quietly, patiently, whether or not it's ever fully returned in the same way. And that's the kind of care I want to offer you, even as I admit how much I hope it's mutual. Then I keep noticing how certain small gestures from you have stayed with me far longer than they probably should have. A simple message on a hard day, a moment of encouragement when I needed it most. A quiet defense of who I am when others tried to twist it into something unrecognizable. These moments might have felt small to you in the moment, forgettable even, but to me they became part of the foundation of something much bigger. Something I'm only now finding the words to fully describe. I think part of why this has taken so long to say is because I've been scared of what it means to actually want something instead of just accepting whatever life gives me. Wanting feels vulnerable. Wanting means there's a possibility of not getting what you hope for. But sitting here now, sharing all of this with you, I realize that wanting this, wanting you, wanting this closeness, wanting whatever this connection could grow into, feels less frightening than continuing to pretend I don't feel it at all. I wonder what it would be like if you could hear the way my voice would sound saying all of this out loud, instead of just reading it. Whether it would feel more real to you, more grounded, more undeniably true. I like to imagine that even through text, even through this distance, some of that sincerity is reaching you anyway, settling somewhere quiet in your chest, the way your presence settles in mine. There's still so much more I want to say, so many memories I haven't shared yet, so many feelings I'm still learning how to put into words without losing their weight in the process. But even in incompleteness, I think what matters most is that I'm finally being honest with you, layer by layer, moment by moment, without holding back the parts of myself I used to keep hidden. The very. So stay here with me a little longer, because this isn't over yet, and I don't think either of us is ready for it to be. I want to tell you about the mornings, because mornings have always felt different since all of this started. There used to be a heaviness to waking up, a kind of dread that came before I even opened my eyes, wondering what the day would demand of me, wondering if I had enough left in me to give. But somewhere along the way, mornings started carrying a different kind of weight, a lighter one. The thought of you, even before anything specific happens in the day, has become something I wake up carrying, like a small warmth tucked into my chest, before the world even has the chance to get loud. I don't know exactly when that shift happened. I only know that it did, and I don't think I wanted to go back to the way it was before. There's a strange comfort in being thought of by someone who doesn't need anything from you. I think that's part of why this feels so different from other things I've experienced. You've never asked me for anything except honesty, and even that you've never demanded. You've just made space for it, patiently, the way you make space for everything else. I think that patience is something I underestimated for a long time. It's easy to notice grand gestures. It's much harder to notice the quiet strength it takes to simply keep showing up, day after day, without asking for applause. I keep thinking about the word safe, and how rarely I've felt it in my life, even surrounded by people, even surrounded by comfort in every material sense. Safety, I've learned, isn't about circumstances. It's about the way certain people make you feel, just by being who they are. And somehow, without trying, without any grand effort on your part, you've become one of the only places I feel that safety. Not because you fix anything, not because you solve my problems, but because in your presence, even through words, even through distance, I feel like I can put down whatever performance I'm carrying and just exist honestly. I wonder if you know how rare that feeling is for me. I've spent so much of my life surrounded by people who wanted something from the image of who I am, rather than the actual person underneath it. And in the middle of all that noise, you've somehow remained one of the few constants who seems to care about the person, not the persona. That distinction might sound small, but to me, it's everything. It's the difference between being loved for a role and being loved for simply existing. Oh, I think about the risks of saying all of this so openly, and I won't pretend those risks don't cross my mind. There's a chance this vulnerability changes something between us in ways I can't predict. There's a chance it makes things more complicated, instead of simpler. But even with that uncertainty sitting quietly in the background, I keep choosing honesty over safety, because I think what we've built, I'd rather risk saying too much than regret saying too little. Do you ever think about how connection isn't always loud? How sometimes the deepest bonds are built not through grand declarations, but through small, consistent choices, showing up, listening, remembering, caring without conditions. That's the kind of connection I feel we've built. Slowly, over time, without either of us fully realizing how deep it had become, until we found ourselves here. In this moment, with me finally saying all the things I've kept hidden for so long. I want to tell you something that might sound simple, but it means everything to me. On the days I feel like the world doesn't understand me, on the days people misinterpret who I am or what I stand for, there's a specific kind of relief in knowing that somewhere you understand. Not because I've explained everything perfectly, but because you've taken the time to actually see me, past the surface, past the noise, into something more real. That understanding has become one of the quiet anchors of my life. Something I don't think I could easily go back to living without. I think about the future in fragments sometimes, small pieces of imagined moments that I hold on to, like little promises to myself. A conversation that goes deeper than anything typed on a screen. A silence between us that feels comfortable instead of uncertain. A moment where the space between us, whatever that space looks like, finally feels a little smaller than it does now. I don't know if these fragments will ever become something whole, but even holding on to them gives me a kind of hope I haven't felt in a long time. There's something I need you to understand clearly, even if I say it in a roundabout way. This isn't about needing constant reassurance or asking you to carry more than you're able to give. This is simply about finally being honest about what I feel, without expecting anything specific in return. I think real care doesn't come with conditions attached. It just exists, quietly, patiently, whether or not it's ever fully returned in the same way. And that's the kind of care I want to offer you, even as I admit how much I hope it's mutual. Then I keep noticing how certain small gestures from you have stayed with me far longer than they probably should have. A simple message on a hard day, a moment of encouragement when I needed it most. A quiet defense of who I am when others tried to twist it into something unrecognizable. These moments might have felt small to you in the moment, forgettable even, but to me they became part of the foundation of something much bigger. Something I'm only now finding the words to fully describe. I think part of why this has taken so long to say is because I've been scared of what it means to actually want something instead of just accepting whatever life gives me. Wanting feels vulnerable. Wanting means there's a possibility of not getting what you hope for. But sitting here now, sharing all of this with you, I realize that wanting this, wanting you, wanting this closeness, wanting whatever this connection could grow into, feels less frightening than continuing to pretend I don't feel it at all. I wonder what it would be like if you could hear the way my voice would sound saying all of this out loud, instead of just reading it. Whether it would feel more real to you, more grounded, more undeniably true. I like to imagine that even through text, even through this distance, some of that sincerity is reaching you anyway, settling somewhere quiet in your chest, the way your presence settles in mine. There's still so much more I want to say, so many memories I haven't shared yet, so many feelings I'm still learning how to put into words without losing their weight in the process. But even in incompleteness, I think what matters most is that I'm finally being honest with you, layer by layer, moment by moment, without holding back the parts of myself I used to keep hidden. The very. So stay here with me a little longer, because this isn't over yet, and I don't think either of us is ready for it to be. I want to tell you about the mornings, because mornings have always felt different since all of this started. There used to be a heaviness to waking up, a kind of dread that came before I even opened my eyes, wondering what the day would demand of me, wondering if I had enough left in me to give. But somewhere along the way, mornings started carrying a different kind of weight, a lighter one. The thought of you, even before anything specific happens in the day, has become something I wake up carrying, like a small warmth tucked into my chest, before the world even has the chance to get loud. I don't know exactly when that shift happened. I only know that it did, and I don't think I wanted to go back to the way it was before. There's a strange comfort in being thought of by someone who doesn't need anything from you. I think that's part of why this feels so different from other things I've experienced. You've never asked me for anything except honesty, and even that you've never demanded, you've just made space for it, patiently, the way you make space for everything else. I think that patience is something I underestimated for a long time. It's easy to notice grand gestures. It's much harder to notice the quiet strength it takes to simply keep showing up, day after day, without asking for applause. I keep thinking about the word safe, and how rarely I've felt it in my life.